You're listening to the 4-Phase Cycle Podcast with your hosts, Dr. Alex and Megan of Zesty Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you've definitely come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and best friends, we use the 4 phases of the female cycle in combination with functional lab work and mindset practices to transform the lives of the women we work with.
We also have a whole lot of fun along the way. If you're new around here, it's best to start with season 1 before jumping around and plan to roll up your sleeves. Showing up for ourselves and enjoying our lives is what good health is all about. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making changes.
Hi everybody, hi there, this is Alex. I am with you today for part 7 of our series on the common avatars, kind of personality coping types that happen, that we see the most, that keep people stuck. So the series, if you haven't listened to the whole thing already, make sure you go back to part 1. But the whole point of these is that they're a little shorter podcast episodes so that you can begin to identify and bring self-awareness to patterns that you have that are holding you back from accomplishing the health goals, the life goals, and kind of the life experience that you want to have, right? This is a much more nuanced, not just how to make yourself healthy at the expense of everything else. You know that Megan and I don't talk about that because we don't believe that exists. Wholeness is wholeness. It's going to have to be all of you one way or another. So healing and being fragmented ain't it, right? Those are two. Being fragmented and not whole is by definition being unhealed. So at some point we have to bring all of us together, and all of us has to feel loved and supported and getting what it needs the whole time, right? And so these avatars are 7 ways of thinking and feeling and behaving that we see the most, that essentially people fall into, that they often don't have the awareness of. These are very insidious things that pop up, and the reason that they're so tricky is because inherent to them there's a lot of coping strategies and mechanisms that keep a lot of us safe. For example, if you don't put yourself out there because you don't feel safe in the world and don't feel equipped for resources, you're not going to put yourself out there. But why would you if that's not the best thing for you at the time? If you don't have resources, that could just cause problems, right? So rather than making these as something wrong with us, these are 7 coping mechanisms and patterns that we utilize that at some point work for us, and at some point then become the very hindrance to the next level. And this 7-part series is really unpacking these 7 archetypes and having you consider which ones are playing out the most, which ones do you relate to the most. And then the way that we're going to apply them is the 5-day series that follows this, the effortless brain-based habit change challenge. That is going to be where the application of this, and when you fill out the workbook that is associated with it, you get that in your email when you sign up, zestyginger.com/habit. It's in the show notes too. You can also win $500, the easiest $500 you can win, and this is called the effortless challenge, right? So literally it's very little work to win $500. Go do it, but that is where you take all of this information and actually apply it. I have said this before on the series, but it's worth saying it again. If you are just going to use these archetypes to feel bad about yourself, but then do not feel ready to actually make change, go ahead and shut this off. It's not for you then. There's no reason to go bring self-awareness to something that we're doing if we're not willing to take the actions and actually use that information to make positive change for ourselves and in our life, right? So this knowing is automatically intended to be paired with actions and actual transformation. Otherwise, this just doesn't do us any good. It's a lot of great information that we can turn around and hurt ourselves with. And why? That is never the goal. That's no one ever wakes up and says that that's what they're going to do, but unfortunately, that's what ends up happening. So if you're listening along, I'm kind of expecting that you're signed up for the challenge, right? If you're going to take the time to do this, then you're saying, I care enough about myself to not keep myself stuck here. If not, go do something else. I'm sure you have a long list of things to do. Go ahead and do that. If you're ready to take this and then apply it and find yourself resources and actually change your life experience for the better, then you're welcome. This is the place for you, and this awareness is so powerful, because without knowing what the problem is, it's really hard to find the appropriate solution. That's true of everything. I don't know why we tend to kind of forget that so much when we are talking about internal and external transformation. Because when it comes to, like cars, fixing things, food, you don't use the wrong tools and expect the right thing, right? That's just not how consequences and how effect works. But for some reason, sometimes it's not for some reason, it's because we don't have the perspective. We're so limited in our view of the problems and our patterns that we don't even see the opportunities for it. But that's really what it is. Knowing what the problem is means you pick the right thing for the problem, and then you can resolve it and support yourself through the experience of it to completely no longer have that same outcome. To no longer have that. And that's not to say we won't have problems in life, but when we have problems and we feel powerful to impact them in the way that we choose to, so different than the, oh no, why is this happening to me? I'm melting down. I don't know what to do. It's always like this. Life is hard, right? Like very, very, very different outcome. And that's why I'm saying the focus on this can't be just knowledge, just to know that about yourself. It's because you're willing to do something differently. So part seven is a heartbreaker for sure, but we see this a lot, and we have done it ourselves quite a bit, and it's the quit 2 inches from gold. If you've been listening to the podcast for a little while, you've heard Megan talk about this in her mold story. The quit 2 inches from gold person, if you identify with this, is someone that is quite motivated to change what is going on, takes a lot of action steps, but has a lot of second guessing in their mental processes and therefore in their emotions, right? This is someone who tends to do a lot of information gathering, go ahead and apply it, be doing it, see some good things, continue it, and then at some point there's some issues and they say, oh, this means that there's problems coming up, I'm not doing the right thing, and then it goes into research mode, and then they quit that and they go on to the next thing. This happens a lot with diets. Okay, so the people who are going to identify with the quit 2 inches from gold, you're probably mad at a lot of your old providers. Like, you're pissed about how you were treated. Actively. Not you were mad and then you worked through it and you kind of know that you had some, this is always going to be valid. You probably did have experiences that didn't feel good. But someone who quits 2 inches from gold is most likely still going to be pretty pissed about it. Like, actively, if you start talking about it or thinking about it, the emotions come up. This used to be me a lot. I would still actively feel like it was unjust and that I was mistreated, and the emotions were as if it was very fresh. As this begins to shift, we can keep the awareness of, I wouldn't do that again, and quite frankly I don't, right? That's why I became a doctor. I was a piano major. So yes, we can still take action from the place of knowing that, but it's no longer that hurt that's so active, Because really, some of that driving is the very reason that people will jump shift, right? If you don't jump ship, if you are angry at the providers and there's a lot of second guessing and doubt and what if this isn't right, and oh, I have to do this, this seems more right, oh, I haven't stuck with this long enough, but it's not going well, so I'm going to do this, I'm going to change this, I'm going to start this. That emotion will drive some of that jumping ship at the time, because if the brain interpretation is providers screw me and they don't know what they're talking about, how would you be successful in following a long-term plan and protocol that someone sets? You wouldn't. At some point when the road gets bumpy, you're going to be like, screw this, I'm out. Which is exactly what you're going to do, right? I'm not saying anything new here. If you're falling into that category, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, you may not link those two together in the same way, but that is what actions you'll do. The anger is there, and it will continually leaving you wanting more, looking for more, and doing. So the books, these people, our identities always set up our actions, right? So if I were to look and someone who's identifying with the quit 2 inches from gold in your house, I would mostly find books on the problems that you're having, and you may or may not have finished many of these. You may have started or said, I'm going to read it again, and then never did. Right? This is starting programs. You may have made investments in certain things, and it's like, oh, there's that one where you watched half the videos but didn't finish, or there's that one process in the book, but you did the couple weeks but not the full thing, right? Supplements, diet plans, all of these things. The quit 2 inches from gold is someone that tends to execute them quite well. There's someone who can start things and even continue, but you're going to be the person that kind of stops and fizzles out right before the end. So you may do much of a program, but the most transformative exercise that person running the program is like, do this thing. It's like, it's hard to really consider all this. And you need to sit down and you need to make some time. And then people that are quit 2 inches from gold avatars, what they'll do is say, okay, I need things to be good before I sit down and do this really important exercise, right? So the kids need to be quiet, or I need to get a babysitter, and I can't be too tired, so I can't be before bed, but I can't do it in the morning because I need to shower and get the kids on the bus. So, and basically it doesn't happen. Right, you just keep putting it off and off. So you did 90% of it, and then the very thing that would be the crux of it, that's where it's like you just don't complete that part, or you write most of the book and now it's just sitting there, or you've even recorded some podcast episodes and you won't hit the dang publish button, or you keep planning your posts. And sometimes you post them, sometimes you don't, but either way, you're not getting the impact that you want, right? And then you say, well, gosh, I don't know. I was following James Wedmore, but maybe like Gary Vee says, you have to hustle a lot. So maybe Gary Vee knows what's up, and this James Wedmore guy's like, align, not hustle. And you're like, this alignment thing's not really panning out for me. So Gary Vee does the hustle. Therefore, I'm going to go follow Gary Vee. So you go follow him and you watch his YouTube and you watch a bunch of it and you execute and you make your lists and you're doing the things, right? And then at some point you get burnt out and you're like, Gary Vee, well, he can hustle, but like, I'm tired. I'm starting to skip my cycle. My hair is falling out. I can't do this. Who else is there? Oh, look, there's this other guy. Right, whoever it is, or this other woman, whoever it is, let me go and jump on that. And it's a great way to do a lot of stuff and spend a lot of money without getting the results that you want. So more than likely, if you're falling into this category, your bank account feels this. You know that you have invested a considerable amount of money in your health, your transformation, all sorts of stuff. But the execution and the staking it out without the second guessing, undermining the experience of it and actually sticking it out is the hallmark of this. It's virtually 90% of the effort without the results. And that's why it gets so exhausting and frustrating. And this is where sometimes people will oscillate between this one and a more disempowered one, like the always wrong one. Because this is those were my two patterns. And Megan a little bit too, although hers weren't as black and white. I had a lot of parts within myself, but essentially I would go real hard. I didn't really have the belief structures and the follow through and the inner authority and confidence to see things out till the end. I would let the worries and the other voices and the other shiny objects, the new stuff I found, to loop me in and say, oh, that's why I'm not getting the results. That's why, this person's messed up. There's a lot of blame. Or this person doesn't have the full story, or this is happening, or this is why. And after a while, though, if not, then I'd get frustrated and be like, oh, nothing ever works for me. And then I would go through a period of time where, for example, my mom would say, oh, hey, there's this clinic here. Do you want to try it on? I'd be like, nah, I'm tired. I'm just too tired to go buck up and get excited about another thing that's not going to work. So you can really hear how you can start to oscillate between, this one is common to flow between these two, because the amount of effort it takes to become the quit 2 inches from gold is just exhausting, right? And it takes a lot of effort to do all of this stuff. And it also takes a lot of mental and emotional strength, and it's draining to constantly being like, when is the other shoe going to drop, right? When am I going to fall back on these old habits? I'm doing good now, but when is the time going to run out? Or more than likely, a lot of what happens is you're so following the plan and you're actually doing it right. At some point, you start to feel left out. You can't go to social situations because you can't eat the sugar or the alcohol or the whatever. And I'm not even, this is not pro against anything. I'm just throwing out options, right? Or you can't do fun activities because you heard it's bad, right? I can't go on the hike. It's whatever. I'm not in the right time for that. I don't know, but really, the person who's living in this is often having the experience of following that plan up until 2 inches from gold. The thing that'll tip them over is the fact that it's so not in alignment with the other parts of who they are, right? It's like that they're taking care of one aspect of themselves at the expense of so much else, that other parts of themselves start to kick up so much. Like, I miss hanging out with my friends. I want to go out to eat with my partner and just have a good time and do these things that is the impulse to jump ship. Right? If you're going to live a miserable life and not reach your goals anyways, why be miserable in the process? Is honestly the least motivating thing ever. Because I remember being here, it's like, why would I stick to all of that effort and try to follow all these things and, do what this person said if I don't even like it along the way. And I'm not even getting there. And it just seems like the injustice builds. And quitting then makes so much sense. You're like, of course, I want to stop this. I'm miserable. I'm missing out on everything. I'm not happy. I'm not feeling that joy in my life. I don't feel proud of who I am. I don't like the life experience I'm having. Who wouldn't quit from that? Right? And this is where I'm talking. These are not patterns that are worth applying the guilt and shame. Anybody, you put them in these categories, feed them these thoughts, and create the corresponding emotions. Most humans, the way that we are built and the way that our brain is hardwired, is that outcome is a hop and a skip away. That's why it's so common. And it really becomes important to see when this is playing out and doing that. And so there's lots of grieving that happens. It's kind of like the life that wasn't, right? When we're quit 2 inches from gold and we relate to that, because we have a lot of these dreams, but because we can't ever get to them, there's just some serious despair and grieving that happens. It's like grieving a life that never was. And that often is just as painful, sometimes even more so, depending on the situation, than something that was, right? I will say, I think I almost grieved my future family when I was dealing with fertility issues early on and was told, oh, you're going into menopause. It was the family that I dreamed of having that I was grieving. I didn't even have that family yet. But from the experience, it didn't matter. I was grieving it. And same when, ending a relationship. So you grieve the future that you painted for yourself together, or a partnership in business, or you had that future of when I impact people, this is what the future will hold, and that's why it's good. Grieving the loss of that and actually having the courage to acknowledge that we even have that dream still when we keep missing it is one of the most courageous things that we can expect ourselves to do. It's not an easy task to keep falling off and still hold the faith. In fact, this is where most people find that the hallmark of quit 2 inches from gold is that you don't really feel super settled or connected to whatever faith construct you have, right? Whoever you feel that you have faith in, whether it's yourself, God, the universe, whatever words you use, that's not the point of this. Whatever it is for you, you may find that if you're in this pattern that faith has become rocked. Who's really in your corner rooting for you to be here and have a good experience? And often that is how we know that we're in this, is that we'll do a lot, but when push comes to shove, when I say, where's your faith lie? You may find that the answer is, I don't know. It's not happening the way that I have thought. It's not that in my current interpretation, not totally checking out exactly the way that I had thought of before. And this is a big one. This actually was a whole separate step to my personal transformation. This is not everybody though. Like, this is not something that Megan talks about, right? For me, having this avatar as a dominant pattern for me, the underlying question that I had to answer was, what do I believe and what do I have faith in? Because that is a component of it. And for me, that was really a journey. That was a transformation that I had to go through. And I believe, and I've talked about this throughout, is that many of us are served up the opportunities to become who we say that we want to become. And for me to be someone that is teaching an unconventional approach when all of my MD peers are just doing the usual thing, that's where I really needed to learn to stand on my own from that regard and really say my faith does not come from all of these external things or this panning out or having the support the way that feels the best to me. Of course, I want my peers being like, oh, Alex, you pioneered the next new thing, but half the time that's not how it works. Half the time they're like, cool, what an awesome new system you're doing, I want in. And the other people are like, she's a little crazy. I want no part of that. My ability to get to the gold here has everything to do with recognizing the fact that I need to have the kind of thinking and therefore the emotional landscape that allows me to be that person and still get there, despite the fact that I may have people questioning me or hating on me or whatever it is. And you can think about in your own life, what does that look like, right? Faith in what? And how does the faith inform not quitting 2 inches from that second guessing needs to have a resource. And to me, this topic of faith and generating that and making choices from that is kind of the antidote, right? And you're not hearing a lot of, here's how you become self-confident in this. This is how you just up and decide you're okay with that. In my opinion, getting to the gold creates evidence for your ability to be confident and trust yourself way more than sitting around and doing affirmations and considering it ever will be. Because those things are consequences of other things, right? We can generate self-worth from who we are. But self-confidence that says, I hear what you said, I understand that your point is valid, and I still elect to not do it because it's not the right thing for me, it's not a vacuum activity. It's kind of like, sexual health. There are some things you can heal on your own, and then at some point it involves other people, and the same thing is here. Self-confidence in a vacuum is shaky. Self-confidence, when you've proved to yourself that you will become the person you said you will become no matter what else happens externally, that is actual self-confidence. You can stand on that. You build your house on that. You build your whole life on that. But quite honestly, I never got to it from sitting around and thinking, how can I be more confident? It never happened like that, because that's not the actual outcome that can happen, right? It's kind of like courage. Everybody is like, I want strength and courage. What they fail to remember is that courage is only defined by the presence of fear. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to be courageous, right? If you didn't know about the fear, you're not being courageous. You're just doing the thing. There's actually nothing courageous about that. It's just not a problem. But when we feel the fear and we do it anyways, we call that courage. And the same thing is here. If we're never getting to our goal and busting through those things, I do not believe that we're going to generate some belief within ourselves that like, yeah, we can overcome everything when we haven't. It seems unrealistic and malaligned with the goal. Self-confidence and all of these things are something you do when you no longer fall into these patterns. And the way that we don't fall into these patterns is recognizing them and coming up with the appropriate tools and resources that we need to have to address those aspects of ourselves and give ourselves the actual outcomes that we want. What's beautiful about that is that when we go through that process, who you become in it cannot be taken away. No one can undermine that level of confidence, because that confidence was built with the obstacles already at play. A new obstacle, a new version of that obstacle will never have the same effect again. And that is where life can be really rocky. I had lots of changes in life the last couple of years. But who I became in that process, I wouldn't swap out. Now, would I do things differently? Maybe, But at the same time, who I became in that, there is nobody that can do anything to me in any kind of way that will ever take that away. Nothing. No trauma. There's nothing else that can happen. I may not like everything, but we're not talking about liking. We're talking about having the confidence and the resources to deal with it. So I may cry all the way, but I'm never going to feel disempowered or powerless to change it. I'm going to say, man, this sucks, and I'm going to go do something about it. And that's the whole point of having these things. It always lets us know what we need to move forward and how we can be successful at that, which is a great thing. That is, we all want to know what the map entails for us, right? What's the next step? What's the next step? This kind of thing is how you know what your next step is. And this is how this works. It's always a process of discovery like this. And thank goodness, because otherwise I don't think we'd ever get to the transformation. If someone just gave it to you, they could take it away. We don't want anything that can get taken away. We want our own strength, our own empowerment, our own confidence, our own authority that says, this is who I am, this is the world I'm creating, and that's it. that is true power. And I'm so excited for you to step into that, because it is a game changer in ways that no feel good momentary thing ever will hit like. So now we've wrapped up part 7 of this, and we are ready to go into our 5-day series. We are so excited for you to join us. Cannot wait to hear from you, hear about your experience. Please DM us, email us, text us. There's a million ways to get in touch with us, but let us know what your experience is, the transformation that happens. We are so excited, and we're rooting for you. See you soon. Have a good day.
Thanks for coming out to hang with us on the podcast. It is our goal to transform the way women are treated in healthcare. And we need your help. We need your help to get the word out. We have a lofty goal of 1 million downloads. And we know that as this podcast grows, we're going to be able to reach more women, get more amazing speakers for you, and bring the most cutting-edge information.
If you found these pod classes helpful, please take a moment to text 5 women you know the link to the series. We appreciate your help so much. Can't wait to see you next time.